So let's start with getting to know QuickBooks Online's payroll service. Let's take a look at the different benefits. So if you're running payroll for your company, you have a choice of running QuickBooks Online's payroll that's right inside the product, or you could go with third parties like Paychex or Gusto or Zen Payroll or Patriot Payroll or ADP. There's a lot of them out there on the market, and it is important that you do get the best fit for your needs. QuickBooks Online Payroll is not the only player in the game, and it has a lot of benefits that we're going to take a look at, but there also are some drawbacks. And so you want to make sure that you pick the payroll solution that's the best fit for your company. Some of the reasons why you might want to use QuickBooks Online's payroll right inside your QuickBooks Online subscription is that you do have a one-stop shop. You don't have to go anywhere else. All the features are built in and integrated into your experience. When you use QuickBooks Online's full-service payroll, and at this point, I'm just going to call it payroll. Some of the benefits are that you can auto run your payroll, so you can set it and forget it if your payroll is the same every single time. You know, if you have people on salary or people who always work a full 40-hour week. You can also have your taxes auto paid for you so that you never miss a tax deadline. It has the ability to pay your 1099 contractors as well, right through the interface. There's also a workforce portal where your employees can log into, where they can see their paychecks, get their pay stubs, submit their W-4, get their W-2s. And so it means that you don't have to print out paychecks. There's direct deposit. There's a resource for your employees. So there's a lot of benefits to it. If you're using other providers, the drawbacks of the other providers is that you do have to go through another website portal. Some of them import information cleanly into QuickBooks Online and some of them don't. So depending on the data that you need, you might wind up having to do some extra work to replicate the payroll inside your QuickBooks. It is also possible that you might miss some deadlines. There are also some advantages to working with payroll providers outside of QuickBooks Online. One of the benefits of full service is that the support system is doing all the work for you, but one of the drawbacks is that if you need help, you have to go through their support. And there are some things that you can't fix that you have to actually ask support to do for you. And some people see that as a deal breaker. It also doesn't do things as prevailing wages. There are some more in-depth payroll scenarios that are not supported by QuickBooks. And so you definitely have to do your due diligence and see which is the best fit. Some of them, like Gusto, are extremely popular. Patriot Payroll gets really great feedback as well. So if QBO Payroll is not the right one for you, you don't have to worry about going into other systems. Let's take a look at the different QuickBooks Online's full-service payroll subscriptions so that you can see the features that each one has. There are 3 levels of service: Core, Premium, and Elite. Core is the basics, where you can easily run your payroll with just a couple clicks, and they will submit your taxes for you. So it's really easy for you to use. And that starts at $45 a month. For your first up to 10 employees, it's $4 per employee per month. If you have more than 10 employees, your 11th and onward are only $250 each month. And so with Core, you get your full service payroll, including your automated taxes and forms. You have the ability to run auto payroll if it's appropriate for you. You also get the ability to take a look at getting your health insurance through your QuickBooks. We'll talk about how health insurance works in a little while. There's expert product support for when you have questions, and there is next day direct deposit, which means that if your employees expect to get paid on Friday, you can run your payroll up to Thursday, and the money will still appear in their direct deposit on Friday. The most popular option is Premium, so that's their mid-level service. And what this does is this adds in HR and timekeeping. So this starts at $75 a month. And then to your first 10 employees, it's $8 per employee. And then after your 11th employee, it goes down to $4 per employee. And you get everything that you saw in Core, that we talked about in Core, but now you also get same day direct deposit. So you can run your payroll on Friday and people will get paid on Friday. You can also get workers' comp inside product, or integrate your existing workers' comp with the payroll. There's an HR support center. And so you'll be able to do things like make your own employee handbook. And I'll show you the HR portal. You also get expert review. You can actually have somebody from Intuit's payroll team look at your payroll setup and verify that you did things correctly. You're not just on your own. And then you also get a subscription to QuickBooks Time, which used to be called T-Sheets. And that's a timekeeping software where your employees can like clock out and clock out on their phone. And it's really, really robust. So if you need time card software, it's built into Premium. The high level is Elite, and Elite starts at $125 a month. For your first 10 employees, it's $10 per employee. After your 11th employee, it drops down to $6 per employee. And you get, just like before, everything that was in Premium. But now your setup can be done by Intuit. So if you don't really actually know much about payroll, instead of trying it yourself and praying that you didn't make any mistakes, they will actually set you up. You get 24/7 expert product support. So if you have any questions, no matter, even if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, they can help you with it. Your QuickBooks Time T-Sheets subscription gets additional features like the ability to geocache, which means that if your employees work out in the field, they can't clock in while they're driving to work. They have to actually be on site for the time to count. And then there's some other features in QuickBooks Time that they also get. One of the important things is that you also get tax penalty protection. So it doesn't, if they make a mistake or if you make a mistake and it causes you to have penalties, they will pay them for you. And so you don't have to worry about late payments and interest. They will take care of anything that didn't go right. That's their guarantee. You also get a personal HR advisor. Not only do you get the HR resources pane or panel, you actually get to talk to somebody there and discuss your issues. So if you're a growing company and you need an HR department, this is not just payroll, but it's HR as well. So you can see that there's 3 different levels of service, from the DIY up to full service HR department. And you can pick which one is the right one for you. And you can also switch between them as you need to. So if you download our slides, you can see the outline of the different subscriptions. So I've talked about Core, and let's take a look at the slide and see if there's anything else that I didn't mention. There is also new hire reporting. When you add a new employee into your payroll, it will also report that to the state for you. Some states don't have new hire reporting. In Oregon, they only have it to check to see if there's any wage garnishments that need to be processed. So that's the new hire reporting part of it. And then here's a slide just about the premium subscription. And then there's this slide just about the Elite subscription. Elite also allows you to file in multiple states. If your employees don't just live in your home state, but they live in multiple states, there's no extra fee for multi-state reporting with the Elite subscription. So let's open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions? This is a good time to talk. Now I want to talk about some of the foundation information that you need in order to understand what's happening with your payroll process. Now, I want to give a caveat to that. That is that the 2 hours that we're going to spend on payroll today really is just looking at the features inside QuickBooks to run your payroll and how to manage it. The conversation about understanding payroll and the ramifications of your actions and payroll laws and limitations, that's outside the scope of today. So you may still wind up needing to go do some extra research and get some extra education. We're going to be focusing on the features of full service payroll, but I do want to start with some of the things that you need to, kind of concepts that you need to have straight in your head. The first one is, what is an employee? What's the difference between an employee and a subcontractor? So an independent contractor is somebody that you hire to perform a service for your business, but they're not an employee of yours. They have their own company providing this service, not just to you, but to other people as well. They set their rates, they set their schedule, they set their workflows. You're just hiring them to do a job, and it's up to them to do the job in the way that suits them most. All you're interested in is the result. They'll bill you at whatever rate that you agree on. You'll pay them in full, and then they're responsible for their own taxes. All you do is just pay the bill, and that's all you have to do. If somebody doing a job for you is an employee, you're telling them what tasks to do. You set the guidelines and parameters for how the work is done, when the work is done. You decide on their pay, and then when you pay them, you take out taxes on their behalf and then submit them to the government. So if you're not sure if the people doing the work for you are independent contractors or employees, there's a lot of resources out there on the web to decide. But for me, what it comes down to is who's responsible for how the job gets done. If you're just interested in the outcome, the final result, and you don't care about how they got there, that's independent contractor. But if you want to keep thumbs on every step along the way, how they're doing it, the tools that they're doing it, you own the computers, you own the software, they're on a schedule for that works with your company, they don't work for anybody else and do this job for anybody else, those are employees. And so it's important to know if they should be an employee or a contractor as they're doing the work for you. The good news with full service payroll is that whichever way you elect to go, you can pay them through your payroll. Let's just talk about how payroll works in general. So when you do have an employee, you're either going to pay them hourly or you're going to pay them a salary. And so if you're paying them hourly, you set a rate, and for every hour they work, you pay them that rate, and then you subtract the taxes from it. If they're on a salary, you're committing to paying them X amount of dollars for the whole year. Let's just say it's $50,000 for the year. That $50,000 is broken up into the number of pay periods that you have during that year. And so it doesn't matter if they're on salary, it doesn't matter how many hours they worked. What's important to you is that they get the job done. And so you might have a salaried employee who works less than 40 hours, and you might have a salaried employee who works 60 or 80 hours. It doesn't matter. They're committed to getting the job done to the best of their ability for that salary that you have prescribed. So then when you pay your employees, you will withhold payroll taxes from their paychecks and then submit it to the government on their behalf. Social Security, also known as FICA, and Medicare. There's federal and state unemployment, and that's FUTA. Unemployment basically means that it's insurance, that if your employee can't work for any reason, there's money set aside for them to get paid while they're on leave. Maybe you terminate them, then they can get unemployment for a while until they get their next job. So you're kind of prepaying that insurance. Personal income taxes, both federal and state. And then there may be other miscellaneous state taxes, local taxes. There may be other things that get deducted from their paychecks. You will pay all of those taxes to the state and the federal government on the employee's behalf. There's also additional cost that you as the employer are also going to pay employment taxes. A lot of these are split 50-50, like you'll withhold Medicare from their paycheck and you'll match that amount, and then the two of them come together to get submitted. And you'll see the initials EE and ER. Employee is EE and employer is ER. And so instead of when you doing any reading about taxes, you'll see EE and ER all over the place. That's just shorthand for employee and employer. Now, as you're paying these taxes, these are what we call payroll liabilities. You're collecting money out of their paychecks and you're remitting it to the state or to the government on their behalf. And so you'll see in your chart of accounts a whole set of payroll liabilities. So it could be taxes, it could be their health insurance premiums. You're deducting money from their paycheck for health insurance and then you're paying for their health insurance. It could be wage garnishments like child support, where you're taking it out of their paycheck and you hold it in this liability category. And then when you pay the agency for child support, you take it out of that liability category. So basically, this set of liabilities accrues throughout the month from each employee's paycheck, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, whether you pay monthly or quarterly for the different taxes. And then when you pay the state or the government for those taxes, it takes the payroll liability back down to zero again, and then you just start over again for the next cycle. Personally, I'm a fan of reconciling these accounts every single month so that you don't accidentally code some other expense into the liability or vice versa. You also are going to have payroll expenses, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. The payroll expenses are the actual money that your company pays out of pocket for all of these things that I'm talking about. And you want to just make sure that when you are paying the different agencies, you're putting it either to the expense or to the liability, whichever is appropriate. So I like to reconcile my payroll liabilities to make sure they are clearing to zero after every tax cycle. The other part of it is the payroll expenses. This is not the money that you've collected from the employees to remit, this is the actual cost of payroll to your company. So it's the wages, it's the net pay, it's payroll taxes. Like I said, there's a lot of them where you pay part and the employee pays part. So this is tracking your part of it. And then payroll fees, the fees to the processor, whether it's the $45 for core or the money that you're paying out to another agency. So those are the three basic expenses that you'll incur every single month and every single quarter as you run your payroll. If you decide not to use the full service payroll inside QuickBooks, these are some of the considerations. Some of them will integrate absolutely completely, and they'll even map the liabilities into your QuickBooks, and when you pay the taxes, it will take them back out again. But others don't have an integration with QuickBooks, and in fact, you might not need to even think about that. For example, if you go with Paychex will draft 3 charges out of your checking account every single month. And you can look at the bank detail code to see them, but like one of them's TX, and those are your taxes. And there's TPS, and that's the wages, and then I think it's TF for fees. And so you can tell from the bank detail which one is which, and then you can simply code each one of those to the expense account that it goes along with. If you're a small company, that's totally fine to do. But if you're a larger company, you may also really want to see all of those liabilities tracked. Personally, I think if you have outside payroll, if you can just log into their payroll website and into their portal, you can get all of that liability tracking information. So in a lot of cases, there's no reason to replicate it inside your QuickBooks Online. If it's just redundant data that you can get the information there and it doesn't impact your reporting inside QuickBooks, don't bother with the extra work. But for some of you, you need that complete 100% detail, in which case either that third-party software will have an integration, or they'll export a journal entry for you to import, or you have to manually create the journal entry in order to get that information into QuickBooks. So it's going to kind of depend on your situation. Also, if you're doing really extensive job costing and you are assigning classes to labor, then journal entries are really the only way to do that in a lot of cases. And so those are some of the different scenarios. So I can't go into too much more specifics because it's going to vary depending on the service you choose and your company's needs. But just the fact that we have to have this conversation shows you that if you can use QuickBooks Online's payroll, then you're smooth sailing, and it's just that much easier. One of the benefits to running your payroll inside your QuickBooks Online is the user permissions. When you set up the different users, the different people who log into your QuickBooks to get their job done, you do have the option of allowing payroll access or limiting payroll access, because generally this is considered confidential information. It's bad manners and sometimes can be like really problematic and dramatic if people are talking about their salaries. So for anybody listening to this, generally you don't talk about your salary with your coworkers because you don't want to find out that somebody is paid more than you, and you don't want them to find out that you're paid more than them. I actually had an incident at one of the places where I worked where I had negotiated a pretty good salary for myself, and somebody said to somebody else, "Did you see what Alicia's getting?" And all of a sudden it became this whole big rumor mill. And it's like, all I did was advocate for myself, and I deserved what I was getting paid. Can advocate for themselves too. You don't want to create any kind of drama and hard feelings inside the workplace. The way this plays out is if you do grant them payroll access, they can see the paychecks, they can see the payroll reports. If you uncheck that payroll access, then they can't see the payroll reports. They don't show up on the reports list. If they try and click on payroll, it just is blank white and says you don't have access to this portal. See your administrator for more information. And if they're looking at a check register that has paychecks in it, instead of the person's name, it just says paycheck, 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 paycheck. One caveat with that, one warning with that, is that if you do copy the person's name into the memo, they will be able to see the name. So on payroll checks, don't put the person's name in the memo. But at least you have that security so that people can get their job done and still not see the payroll confidential detail. Now, I also want to talk about one of the best practices. In my experience, I have come across a lot of different companies where the owners don't really have good financial management skills, and you think about payroll as the money that you're putting into the paychecks, but payroll really is also the money that you owe in taxes 3 months later on. And so one of the things that I do recommend is to keep a separate checking account that's just for taxes and payroll. And then when you run payroll, I'm going to show you where to see the total payroll cost, not just the net for what comes out in the paychecks, but how much you're going to have to pay in taxes and the whole fully burdened rate. And so my recommendation is for every payroll run, you move that total obligation out of the operating checking and into the tax checking account. And then that way you run payroll out of that account, you pay taxes out of that account, and it never impacts your operating checking. You don't have to worry about whether you have enough money in your checking account to do X because of payroll. Now, one cool thing inside QuickBooks Online is there's now a new free checking account called QuickBooks Cash, which is built into your QuickBooks. And so you can sign up for it. It even has a 1% APY interest. Now, that's not 1% per month, that's 1% divided by 12. So, it's still just pennies on the dollar, but a lot of checking accounts don't have interest at all. So that's kind of nice. And then what QuickBooks Cash allows you to do is create a separate envelope, like a separate subsection of the account where you can just put your whole payroll cost into that. And it's integrated with Full-Service Payroll so that you can, for instance, take your merchant service payments and put them into this payroll envelope and then pay your payroll out of that envelope, or just transfer money in and out of the envelope. But it's designed so that you can have an envelope called payroll, employee payroll, and then it always looks to the employee payroll envelope in order to run payroll. So it's a nice little perk that you might want to take a look at. Let's open up the floor to questions. Anybody who's live can ask questions now if you have any. If you are watching this video on demand, head up to Ask Questions and you can ask me questions there. Now let's take a look at the Payroll Center itself and how to get around inside Full-Service Payroll's portal. So when you're in your QuickBooks, you'll look over on the left-hand side, and in the left navigation, you'll see it says Payroll down here on the bottom left. When you go into it, there's an overview. The first place is the Overview tab, and the Overview tab will give you an alert for how long until your next payroll run. You'll look down at the bottom for a to-do list, actions that it's waiting for you to take, so you got to keep an eye on this. There's shortcuts to running payroll, adding an employee, paying a contractor, or adding contractors. And then there's also a little alert. It'll pop up birthdays. It will pop up notifications. So keep an eye on that as well. So I like to come into Overview and just make sure there's nothing that I'm missing. And again, we're just under payroll on the left-hand side. When you look at your employees list, you're going to see the list of all of your active employees. If you have inactive employees, there is a drop down right here so that you can drop this down and see employees who have been terminated, who are no longer with you. When you want to add a new employee, there's a button over here on the right to do that. When you're ready to run your payroll, there's a green button up here on the top. And so that's where you'll go to run your payroll. So this is the screen that you're in most of the time. When you want to see specific information about an employee, you would click on that employee, and we'll do that in a few minutes. The next tab is your Contractors tab. So if you have independent contractors who are working for you, these are people that you would want to send a 1099 to at the end of the year. You can set them up as a contractor and pay them right through your payroll. You can write them checks, you can do direct deposit, you can even do bills and things like that. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. I also want to point out that I have a whole course just on 1099s and contractors in my portal. So if you look for the 1099 wizard, I go into depth about the contractors. Workers' comp is one of the benefits. You can get workers' comp right inside your QuickBooks, or you can connect an existing policy. And I'll be talking about workers' comp a little bit later. Then there's the benefits section. And what you see here under benefits is going to depend on what level of QuickBooks that you have. Health insurance is available at every level. And so this is kind of like going to a health insurance broker where they're going to show you all the policies in your area, whether it's Regents or Kaiser or whatever your local insurance are, then you can apply for it right inside. And it's pretty much the same rates as if you had applied independently. Sometimes the benefits are a little bit different inside, but I found that the health insurance was pretty comparable to other health insurance that I got outside of QuickBooks. Now, I'm not using it inside QuickBooks because I already had my health insurance set up, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're just getting started and you don't have health insurance, why not keep it easy? This is going to save you a ton of time for doing a whole lot of research. There's also 401k retirement plans right inside here. Now, there is an administrative fee. You can see it at the bottom of $39 plus $8 per employee. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm not using it, because mine doesn't have a monthly fee and my per employee is lower. But again, there's so much benefit to keeping things streamlined and all inside your product, so that if you're just starting out, this may be the best route for you to go. It's definitely going to be the easiest route to go. There's also a compliance tab in the employee center, or in the payroll center. There's going to be different articles appear and disappear from here depending on what's happening in the world or what time of year it is. You can see here that there's a year-end 2020 checklist that you want to have complete in order to prep for taxes. You can verify your wages. There's information about 1099s, the Family Paid Leave Act, the PPP program. And so compliance is a great place to make sure that what you're doing in your company, that your policies match what you need, your legal obligations. Always pay attention to the compliance section. So that's the interface. That's how the Payroll Center works. Does anybody have any questions? If you're watching this on demand, you can head up to the Ask Questions forum. So let's then take a look at how to view one employee's information. In the previous screen, I showed you that when you go to the Payroll Employees tab, you get a list of employees. This screen is what happens when you click on any one of those employees. And I know I'm not showing you as much in product as I do in a lot of my classes, but because payroll has so much confidential information, this class is kind of hard to teach live. So that's why I'm giving you 190 slides worth of information. So what I've done now is I've gone into the Employee Center. I clicked on my employee card, and here I am. You can see a lot of this has been redacted. So if it looks a little funny, that's why. And so you can see here the employee details, and you can see information about their pay, their social security number, but it's only the last 4 digits, their pay rate, if they have any additional pay, their schedule, their payment methods, their deductions, company paid contributions, if there's health insurance, garnishments, and their W-4 information. And then when you want to edit any of this, which we're going to do extensively, when I get into this payroll information section, I get in there by clicking on this pencil, and then it will take me to the screen that we're going to see in one of the next videos. There's a profile area, and that's where you keep their vital statistics, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, gender, and notes, birthday. And then their employment status, if they have an employee ID number, what their hire date was, where they work, what their job title is, if they have workers' comp, and or even a termination date if the employee has been let go. But obviously I still work here. Okay, so this is the employee screen, and again, you can see little pencils next to each one to get into the details. When I click on Paycheck List, the next tab in, now you can see a list of all of the paychecks that have been run. And you can set the date range and just see one specific period of time, everything this year, everything last year, a custom date to see all paychecks. It'll show you the total pay and the net pay. You notice that the net pay here, even though you can't actually see my net pay, you can tell that it's blue, which means that it's a hyperlink. And so I can then click on net pay, and it will take me in to show me everything that's on their paycheck. Now, I know this image is really a little skinchy. We're going to be talking about this in more detail. Later on, I'm going to show you a video of seeing this detail. But that's how you then get in and drill in and look at their actual paycheck itself. Okay, let's take a moment for questions.